What makes the achievement of emotional sobriety so difficult is the habits we have, the patterns we have in our behavior, the habitual ways that we've come to think about things. We have to really become aware of those things in order to challenge them, because the consciousness that has created a lot of the problems in our life cannot solve it, cannot change things. So what happens is the first step is waking up.
I'm going to start off by trying to do this like Alan. Alan and I have been working together for a long time, but we're very different. But I'm going to try to do my best Alan impersonation to begin with and talk about the 12 steps. Before we talk about step 9, I want to talk about the 12 steps in general. And so what happens is the first step is there, and it's there, and it builds up energy. And it gets all energized, and there's a bunch of stuff in the 12th step there, and it all of a sudden bumps into step 2, and step 2 wakes up and goes, oh shit, and starts jumping around like a little pinball machine, and then it builds a bunch of energy up, and then it kind of runs sidelong into step 3, and step 3 just starts laughing its ass off because who's good at letting go of anything, or turning anything over? So step 3 finds us all very hilarious. And then it just begins to build up, sort of like indigestion in step 3. And then it just blasts out at step 4. And that's as far as I've figured it out so far, as far as that goes. So we'll go ahead and jump over to step 9. But I hope that was decent enough that it'll make you feel like you have Alan here with you. And so there you go. So now my ill-prepared step work on step 9 is here it is. It's like I'll start with, well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna start with something I wrote yesterday. It's about emotional sobriety, but I was thinking about this tonight. I was thinking, it really is applicable to step 9, because emotional sobriety is about, we can define it all kinds of ways. And Alan and I are writing a book now that's a daily, one day at a time kind of book. So in a way, you can almost look at every one of those entries as every 365 definitions of emotional sobriety. But there's so many different ways. It's sort of like codependence and codependence recovery. There's so many different ways but ultimately it's about being a grown-up. It's about taking full responsibility for ourselves. And so, and Alan and I are always batting around different ways of defining it. I'm just going to read you this. I just wrote it. This is as far as it's gotten. I've just written it into one of my daily, my one day at a time readers, and see if I can read in my handwriting. It says, emotional sobriety is a philosophy to be applied, not a goal to be reached. Emotional sobriety is a daily practice that requires our conscious attention to details of how we are responding both interpersonally and intrapersonally in our lives. Continued from previous page. Oh, that's not part of it. Hold on. Happiness is not the goal of emotional sobriety practice, but it is a prevalent and frequent side effect of living congruently with one's own consciously defined value system, which is what I believe all of this is about number 1, being clear on our value system, because a lot of times we think we know, but a lot of times we're just talking about the big values, like don't kill anybody for no good reason, but it's like at different times in our lives, in different places in our world, it's like we need to be honest about our value system. And to me, that's what integrity is. It is, and the way I think about it is, whether we're talking about peace or whether we're talking about emotional sobriety, it's not something we're going toward. It's something that runs right down the center of us. And so what we're doing, so here it is, here is my emotional sobriety. And what I'm going to try to do every day is live as close to that as I can. I want to, first of all, I can't do that if I haven't defined it. And the definition of it really will be changing along the way. But it's like, and the truth is, when Alan often, starts by asking like Declan or Brian or something about their emotional sobriety, I don't think what we're talking about is, are you dead on? I think it's about, we'll go to Roger's work about awareness and acceptance. I think it's about being cool and clear about where you are. So I believe here's my emotional sobriety. And if I'm sitting here checking in for the group today, and I think I'm about over here, and I'm telling you what that is, that's not necessarily a bad day. That may be a day where I don't feel so good. But as long as I'm aware of it, as long as I'm accepting it, and as long as I'm saying to you guys, or whatever support system I have, what's going on, then I am on the way to working with it. It's like isolation is the killer. It's like none of us. I often say that, my alcoholism, my depression, my should monster, my self-hatred, none of that stuff can kill me unless it is coupled with isolation. And that's me keeping a secret. That's me not letting somebody know. And difference between secrecy and privacy. Everybody in the world doesn't need to know what's going on, but somebody needs to know what's going on, especially if it's important. And we need to be able to be aware of where we are. That's the main thing. I'll just tell you a quick story from one of my groups early on, eating disorder group I did many decades ago. But it just changed the way that I asked people about themselves. I asked the group in general, but then I asked this one young woman in particular. I said, "How are you doing?" And she said, "Are you asking me how I'm doing or how I'm feeling?" And of course, right there, the light bulb comes on. It's beautiful. It's already good. But the idea is because she said what she said, because I feel like shit. And I'm doing great, and what she meant by that is in her early recovery with the eating disorder, just like with any other early recovery with anything, is if I'm not picking up a drink, or that the anorexic is eating that food, or the bulimic is not binging, nothing about that feels good. It's like being the grown up means I'm doing this because I believe this is going to deliver me to the next place I need to be. And we become, when we're adults, and this is what we're talking about to step 9, we have to be ready for step 9. It's not a toss off. We have to really be grown up when we do this, because it means, in some ways, what it means when we really are adults in this recovery work is, what I tell clients sometimes is it's strange to say, but we're really volunteering for pain. We're volunteering to feel pain for particular reasons, for particular purposes, feelings and pain that has not been processed. We need to be in step 9 before we go out and do this amazing thing of acknowledging who we are, what the new version. In step 9 is in a way kind of introducing ourselves as our new recovering self. We have to be, before we go out there, we have to have more than just a little simple idea about what that is. We have to have that we need to have that as integrated into our being as we possibly can. My way of describing this, and some of you have been in this group for a while, have heard me say this before. My experience of the sort of the psychological, position I need to be in for step 9 is something that I actually experienced for the first time well into my alcoholism recovery. And I experienced it with a conversation with my wife, in which we were both sober for actually several years at that point. We were in a lot of couples therapy, and we were having a conversation about, it was kind of like, we weren't defining it that way, but it really, now looking back, it really was about, listening to each other and making amends. And the way I describe it is and not, not always this way, but a lot of times to other men in couples work that I'm doing, is I say, I knew I was a grown man when I was able to stand there and listen to my wife tell me about her pain, and that I caused, that, it's not a blame thing. It's just, she was feeling the pain because of irresponsibilities on my part. And when I could do that, stand there and neither crumble, which was one of my best things that I learned early on, is, so be so pitiful that it would be really hard to be mad at me. Neither crumble or defend, or to, come back. But no, let me explain that to you. Let me do this, let me do that. And the idea of being able to stand there and actually just do what I personally think that women are very often asking my gender to do, is just fucking listen, and I was just listening, and not even, and I always like to point this part out too. Maybe this is getting into too much detail, but I can't remember that exactly conversation in detail of what the content was anyway. It's been so long ago, but it's like I'm sure that one of the parts of my success that day was that there had to be things that she was saying that I didn't think were exactly accurate about what she was thinking, putting on me in terms of what I was thinking, or what I had done, or intent. But it was close enough. It was all close enough. And so one of the things I didn't do, and I wasn't conscious of it at the time, but looking back, I didn't do is I didn't let that defensive part of me come out and start nitpicking, because that would have ruined the whole thing. I needed to sit there and take full responsibility for myself. And that's, to me, what step 9 is. When we decide, it means we can talk a lot about what that means to interact, and how we deliver the amends to these people. But what I'm talking about tonight is just the condition we need to be in. And we need to be in a place where it's not a place of shame. And it's not a place of, aren't I something, to be making so amends. It's like, that's, and Bill Wilson in 12 and 12, he points that out. He says, this atmosphere of approval and praise, talking about when people are responding well to our amends, this atmosphere of approval and praise is apt to be so exhilarating. And when something's so exhilarating, what do we addicts do? As to put us off balance by creating an insatiable appetite for more of the same. So what he's saying there is, and I love the idea that I'm just such a talented addict that I could get addicted to anything, including step 9. I could go ahead and I'm going to go around making amends to people so that I feel so good about myself. It's like, we got to, and that's why we have to bounce it off our sponsor or therapist or friends. Be sure we're not doing that. Be sure we're not actually, we don't want to do any of this at somebody else's expense, except for when to do so would harm others. But we don't want to do it, and there is a benefit for us. I mean, obviously all these steps are about us taking responsibility for ourselves and becoming responsible for our being, and becoming something new and different and better. But it's not about benefiting ourselves in the immediate moment. It's not about, this is going to make me feel good to do this. It means I'm doing this because I feel like I believe that, not even I feel like, I believe I need to do it. Herb, see if you can fix that for me.
Well, I don't think it needs fixing. It was wonderful. I was skeptical at the beginning, but
me too.
No, yeah, I think you actually. Oh, hi, Alan. You really, quite frankly, you nailed it. I hope Alan heard it, or at least maybe
thank you
can hear it, because what you really did say, and you gave us such great energy at the beginning, because that's where we come in with energy, even if we're completely depleted at the beginning. That's the energy. Oh my God, I'm gonna die, and I don't want to, because we're identifying a problem. So that's it. Step 1, I need help. Step 2, help's available. Step 3, I'm going to take some action so that I can access the help. And steps 4 through 9 is in fact the help. And you used the term, I love it, deliverance. I'm going to read. That's it.
Thank you.
Deliverance, but to what? From what to what?
Yes. From
bondage to freedom. Really simple. This is about freedom. The first half of the first step, freedom from addiction. The second half of the first step, freedom from unmanageability, I was delivered immediately to freedom from addiction. That I don't take any credit for that at all. But it took 4 years to do this, to come to do this work. And I began then to be delivered to freedom from my unmanageability. And for the last 35 years, I have managed my life. People in the program sometimes say, no, let God be the driver. Hell no. No, I'm equipped. I have the car, I have the license, I know how. I don't know where I'm going sometimes, and even if I do know where I'm going, I don't know how to get there. So I use the GPS and I listen. And that you made a point there, and it's the guidance thing. The other point that you made, that we really need help. Do not try to do this work, step work, on your own, but especially the 9th step. It's such sacred work because it's not about us anymore. It's about our turning, and the final phase of our turning, that started with the commitment in step 3, the beginning of that awkward inventory in step 4, the turning from our self-centeredness to other-centeredness, and in step 9, it's a forgiveness process. From 4 to 9, the process, so dimmer switch, incremental, subtle, and yet so powerful, of going from the darkness to the light, to be turned. I am willing to turn. My experience is I was turned. A change in me that I was not able to do on my own. Even in AA, even with the sponsor, going to meetings every day, 4 years, I did not change. I did not change. I didn't know that I didn't change because I didn't know that change was necessary until I woke up that, in fact, I was pretty delusional about who I was, and the result of the delusion created harm on other people because I impacted them in a negative way, and I wasn't aware of it. That was what was happening, and even if I was aware, I didn't care. All right. And all of that changed in that process. You know, one of the documents for the U.S. construction back in the beginning, 1776, is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life first, we need to survive. Then we need liberty. Then we can pursue happiness. It's not guaranteed, but we can pursue it. And it's that turning, that is that forgiveness, that is that healing. And it's the whole turning, like, it's not about me, it's about them. And oh, by the way, and the paradox is, as I bring healing to them by my changing and the repair of the damage, the essence of 9th step, amend, has 2 connotations. A change in me so that I'm not creating more damage, and then the damage repair of others. And that's I bring that to them potentially. And you said it, what did you say? Something about acknowledge, you said acknowledging, acknowledging the damage so that the gaslighting is done. And they go, oh, I'm not crazy. You really are a jerk. Yeah. Yep. I'm full of, and what can I do?
That's a great way to put it, Herb.
Yeah.
So thanks for validating me that you're an asshole. It's like,
exactly.
You're welcome.
Exactly. Oh, I had a couple people say that. Thank you for acknowledging it, especially my wife.
Yeah.
She says that there were, anyway, I won't go into that. It's the freedom on the other side of it, a process that I absolutely needed guidance all the way through. But in the 8th and 9th step, more rigorously, more knowledge and more experience. And the guy who took me through the steps had the humility to say, I don't have any experience with that particular situation. Go talk to a woman. And a woman had the humility and the strength to be able to give me some very direct guidance as to how she would want it if that harm had been done to her. And the woman I talked to then to repair the damage, at the end of it said 2 things. Thank you for acknowledging it. This has been so healing. Words I didn't use in the conversation, and yet that was her intuition of what had just happened. So
Yeah.
very, very, very sacred work that we can make amends to everybody. Dead people, people that we shouldn't find, people that we can't find, we can make amends. Sometimes it's a alternative, like an indirect kind of a substitution, and sometimes it's a prayer practice. I'm a very strong believer in prayer. I do not know how it works. I don't really care, but I do know that it works. At least it changes me. Thanks.
Oh, but the other thing is that the word amends means change. Like you've said this recently. It's like it means change, not apology. So the idea is we're all, for somebody I mistreated a long time ago, if I don't know where they are, but I'm using that as a reference point now to be kind and respectful to people. Then I am making amends.
As long as that living amends that you're referring to, a very valid approach to living amends from my standpoint, is not a duck of responsibility. I'm just be a better person in the universe now,
right.
And everything's okay because I'm okay. Well, no, honey, you need to go visit her and pay her some money.
Good.
Yeah.
Cough it up.
Yeah, right.
That's great.
I will step in after you, Brian.
Look, then before I go, when I was planning on sharing what you shared with me this morning, would that interfere with what you have to contribute? It really struck me, and it fits in so well with this.
I'm just gonna rip off a few things that were said already. So no, that wouldn't interfere with anything.
Wonderful.
No agenda.
Yeah, it really. What you? So Al shared a quote. I don't know where you got it from. I've never seen it before, but
Father Richard Rohr sent it. It was part of his daily reflections. He's a Franciscan priest in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's a center for action and contemplation.
There's my citation.
Good.
So I'm going to read this because I think if I have to in order to do it justice, because it's so well written. It goes, by giving ourselves to this primary human absurdity, which shows itself in patience, love, and forgiveness toward all things, we find a positive and faith-filled way through the world, the flesh, and the devil. This is not by resolving it or thinking we can ever fully change it, but by recognizing that we are all complicit in this mixed moral universe. This is perhaps the humility that Christians need in their campaigns for social reform. This is carrying the cross with Jesus. Through this primal surrender and trust, God can use our own cruciform shape for healing and for immense good, and even victory. True healers. Man, I'm tearing up because you came to my mind so much in this line that I'm about to read, Alan. True healers are always wounded healers, not those who perfectly triumphed over all evil. Humans often end up doing evil by thinking we can and must eliminate all evil, instead of holding it, suffering it ourselves, and learning from it, as Jesus does on the cross. This ironically gives us the active compassion we need to work for social change. This is another one, man. My acceptance of a cruciform world mirrors my ability to accept a cruciform me. Yeah, I've talked to so many people, and I felt this too, and making in the step 9, the amends making process, being so afraid of it. Because I think, at least my understanding of it, is this idea that you're showing these parts of you that are so unacceptable, and things that you've done that are so unacceptable. And your ability to make space for all of the parts of you is directly proportional with your ability to make that same space for the world and for everybody else in it. They're connected. They're the same thing. And so if you want grace, everybody gets grace. And if you want to be able to be imperfect, everybody gets that too. They're directly connected.
And Brian, pardon me for interrupting, but the thing you said, because that's the way we think about it, is these are unacceptable. And I was just thinking this back to what I was thinking when I was doing my thing, is the idea is that's one of the that's a great way to describe how we're different when we're ready to do 9-step work, in that is those things are now no longer unacceptable, that we have done work, not perfect, but we have done work to accept those aspects of ourselves that are darker, or that we understand, and I always say, like, what we learn is about how we got to be the way we are is explanation, not excuse, but we can accept it. And it's like, that makes all the difference in the world.
It's incredible. I remember, Alan, there was a conversation that you, Flor, and I had, must have been 1.5 years or 2 years ago or so, something like that, where when Flor came to you with something she had discovered about me that I was hiding, and we had an emergency late night session. And it was the one thing in my life that I was most deeply ashamed about. And she discovered it and just fucking blew me up in front of everybody, which was a good thing, but God damn it, it was like, how dare you? It was one of the best things that ever happened to me, but I don't think I would have had that kind of a transformative experience if it wasn't for what you said to me that night. I remember it like it was a movie. All this stuff came out, and I wanted to hide, as you were talking, as we were talking about it, I wanted to shrink into the floor. And you looked at me and you smiled and you said, all of you is welcome here. I don't know if you remember that. I remember that. And I have never had a more perfect experiential example of having the most shame part of me I'm most ashamed about be so exposed and received in such a repairing and healing way, where I have been changed ever since that one sentence you said to me. So that was what came to mind when I read what you sent to me. And I can draw all these comparisons to the 9th step and stuff like that, but that feels pretty complete to me. I'm really glad you made it tonight, by the way.
I am so touched by everything you're saying. What I say to you tonight, Brian, is I need to hear that from you.
Yeah.
I need to hear that from you tonight. Things have been really hard. Wow.
Well, all of you is welcome here.
Thanks, Thom.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Oh my God.
All of you is loved here, by the way.
I've been feeling that. I tell you, the outpouring of love and support I've gotten from people while I'm in this crisis has been so darn important. What comes to mind is it's made the unbearable. It's made me be able to endure some of the unbearable that I'm going through right now. That's the experience I'm having. I'll just try to say a few things about this step, but I'll say a lot more about it next week. But one of the most important things here that we've been building on here is that we can see that with the pivot in step 6 and 7 towards the best possible attitude towards our shortcomings, that's being extended now to the best possible attitude in our relationships with other people. And there's nothing healthier than taking responsibility for the mistakes and wrongs that you've done. It's such an important experience. And the word I'd use tonight is this step begins a very important process of integration. Is we are integrating experiences rather than being fragmented by our experiences. And you know what you said is so true, Brian, is that the shame that we have just cuts us off from different parts of ourselves. And some of the wrongs we've done are terrible that we've done to other people. You know, Father Rohr had something else the other day. He said that evil grows in the unconscious, because the unconscious is dark, and that's always where evil lurks, right? You don't get scared during the day. The boogeyman doesn't come during daylight. When does the boogeyman come? He comes at night. All evil is associated with darkness. And what my unconscious is being asleep. It's being in darkness. And this is such an important part of our continuing to wake up. And God, you know, as I get a little more distance from this situation and this crisis I'm in, I'll be able to share with you guys how I'm waking up through this whole thing. It's a major wake-up call that's going to move me to a much deeper level of awakeness and of awareness in my life, which I am, you know, I'm as I always do at the beginning of something like this, I go in kicking and screaming. Don't throw me into that boiling oil, in that cauldron of boiling oil. I don't want to go. And then I get wrapped in chains and somebody tracks me and throws me in the oil. And now I'm sitting in the oil, and I'm in the oil, and I'm able to now, as I said to you, man, with friends like you, Brian, Tom, Herb, Roger, and all of you that are here, Tom Potash and everybody else. I've had so many people reaching out and putting me in their prayers. It means a lot. But I want to end this, you know, because it is about integration, but I also want everybody to put Roger Andes in your prayers and in your thoughts. He's still hospitalized. He's been in the hospital for 4 days now. He went in on an emergency basis, and he turned out that he had severe clotting in his lungs. They called it a lung attack rather than a heart attack.
Right.
Had he not gone in and been put on a very, very strong blood thinner, we'd be talking about, you know, a memorial for Roger, not praying about his return to our meeting. So hopefully tomorrow he's going to be discharged, and his son came back home from Chicago and is with him to care for him, which I'm so happy about. But that's all I have for tonight. And once again, Brian, God, man, I love you. You've been so right on through this whole thing with me, man. And all of you have, and you too, Tom and Herb. So thank you guys. I can open it up now and bring Tom Potash in.
Thank you guys. A real powerful message this evening. You know, I want to chime in with, I got that reading too from Alan this morning, and it moved me. And it reminded me of when my dad passed away about 5 years ago. You know, I had already made amends to him and had gotten some reconciliation, but there was still this, perception of, how much trouble, I'll use that as an euphemism, how much trouble he had caused, our family by some of his behaviors. And it, in the days that followed him passing away and leading up to his service, I got a lot of feedback from friends of his, co-workers, and he had his own company, so employees who said, your dad was such a great guy. He took care of me when I needed a job. One guy, he went to jail. He kept sending the guy's paycheck to his wife. Really, took care of people. And I'm sitting there going like, but wait, this is the same guy that did, and I realized he's both. He's not all of, the rageaholic that I grew up with, the absentee dad at times. He was also this, generous guy. He took out of his pocket to keep a family business going, keeping all his kids employed because he thought it was the right thing to do. Like, and I'm like, of course he's both, right? It's an and then I look at it, I go, oh yeah, I'm an and also. I'm an asshole and a and a good guy. You know, like I you know, it's both. And you know, just as I want forgiveness, you know, I need to give it as well. And just as I know I'm human, and listen, I had all the opportunities in the world in terms of therapy and 12-step program and, you know, and prayer and meditation, and I still stumble, right? And, you know, like I try my hardest and I still stumble. And who am I to start pointing fingers, you know, at people who have less tools than me? And you know, it's just the good news is today I'm awake enough to realize that, and to, you know, to pass along that, you know, grace that was been given to me. So it's just a, you know, wonderful conversation tonight.
I hear a lot of people criticize the 12 steps that they're old-fashioned. I can understand that criticism. They were written back in 1935. Some people that are agnostic have difficulty with the word God used in the steps. For me, I look at the process that's involved. The forces that the 12 steps generate are so powerful that I think they're ageless. There's this interesting phenomena that happens when you work the steps. They create a charge and then a discharge. You know, the first step, we're powerless. Our life has become unmanageable. It creates this charge. You know, we're in big trouble and we don't know what to do. And then step 2 comes along and it says we have hope. That charge, that existential crisis that we have is resolved. What's happening here is parallel to life. We charge ourselves when we breathe in. When we exhale, we discharge. That's the rhythm of life. And the way I love to think about the 12 steps, it's helping us get connected to the rhythm of life so we can learn how to show up in a good way.